What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we are talking double game weeks. Who would have known? You thought the international break was boring. You're waiting for the football to come back. There's nothing to talk about. Well, guess what? We have double game weeks. We even have a blank, although the blank is for Crystal Palace. So I don't think many people really care too much about that fixture. So in this one, I'm going to talk about what's happened, the headline announcements, then what that means for our teams, and then whether or not that changes my strategy and stuff like that. We'll talk wildcards, free hits, all that good stuff, right? So if you enjoy it, please do give it a like, hit subscribe if you're around here. Let's jump into it. Okay, so let's talk about the headline news first of all, right? So the big one is Spurs now have a double game week in game week 32. So there was a lot of panic last week, the beginning of this week, that there was blank game weeks in game week 32. And I mentioned a few times on videos that those matches would be rearranged back into game week 32. They'd just probably be played at different times. So rather than be on the weekend, for example, they would be midweek, which has happened for some teams. But there is also a blank as well, which I'll come on to in a minute. But the big news is that Spurs now play Everton away on Friday the 16th of April. Then they play Southampton at home midweek on Wednesday at 6 o'clock, the 21st of April. So game week 32, likes of Harry Kane, Son, Bale, Reguilon, Lloris, whoever you might be holding, are going to play twice, right? So it's pretty big news. I think this is like a kind of reaction video where I've thought of a few things I want to talk about straight away. There might be other things that come into my head later on, like other things to think about, which I'll cover on the game week preview tomorrow, team selection and stuff. But I don't see any reason why Harry Kane, if you've got your triple captain left, wouldn't be using this week. I know that a lot of us used triple captain on Kane in the last double game week for him, and it didn't go too well. But you know he's going to play twice. You know he's not going to get rotated. He's on penalties. It just makes the most sense. And Everton away, Southampton at home is a pretty good double game week. So that's one bit of news. Crystal Palace are blanking, so their fixture didn't get put back into game week 32, which is interesting. It's against Southampton. The Southampton one that got put into game week 32 was the Spurs fixture, why there's a double. But most people don't own Crystal Palace players, so it's not a huge, it's not really a huge issue for our teams. What's interesting, though, is that game will have to be put somewhere. Now, I think the fact that they announced fixture changes for game week 32 and game week 33 probably means that no other fixtures are going to get put into those weeks. So Southampton versus Palace will get put into another game week down the line, and both those teams will double. Now, straight away I'm thinking Southampton, Palace, do I really care? But you never know. If it gets put into a week with a decent fixture for both those teams, right? Like outside of this one, I mean, then who knows? Zaha captain, Danny Ings captain, it is a possibility. It doesn't mean we should be bringing those players into our teams, but we should be flexible enough to know that that could be a thing in the future. And then Villa versus Everton, still not being rearranged. Therefore, it's probably not going to be in game week 32. Who knows when it's going to be at this point, right? It's going to probably be in 34, 35, 36, 37, or 38. I have no clue where it will be put. My guess is not game week 38, but who knows? There could still be fixture rearrangements done at the end of the season to try and get fans back into stadiums. So there's a lot more chaos to come. Villa versus Everton going into 32 would have been nice for those that are holding Everton and Villa players, but obviously that isn't the case right now. So you have to make a choice about whether to get rid of them or not. I only own one, which is Martinez. Probably going to sell him in game week 31, and I'll have 0 from that fixture. And I'll have to sell them knowing that when that fixture gets rearranged, I might have to use a few transfers to get in the likes of Grealish, Watkins, Calvert-Lewin, because I'll probably want to captain one. But I'll come to that, or think about that when it comes, you know, when that fixture actually gets rearranged. So that's the headlines. Let's look at some things that we want to start considering now. Okay, so lots of things to consider, depending on whether you've got chips, whether you don't, etc. First things first is Spurs now double in game week 32, but then they blank in game week 33. So if you're not free hitting in game week 33, you have to be careful about how many Spurs players you get. To be completely honest, everybody, and I say everybody not literally, right, but most people are going to have Kane and they're going to have Son as long as they're both fit, right? That's a given. Everyone's going to have them. If people have got Bale, I would not be surprised if they switch to Son if they've only got Bale and not Son. If they've got both, maybe they keep. Maybe there'll be some people with Reguilon, there'll be a few people with Lloris, etc. Everyone's going to have Kane and Son. Arguably, you don't have to have a triple up, right? And if you're not free hitting in 33, that might be the way to play it. Just have Kane or Son, you can bench them, bearing in mind that Man City also blank in game week 33. So if you were holding Kane, Son, Bale, De Bruyne, Gundogan, for example, maybe even a City defender, you've not got your free hit, then in game week 33 you're probably going to want to sell some. Otherwise you're playing with less than 11 players. And given that there's so many fixtures on that week, apart from the 2 games that City and Spurs were involved in, most people are going to have 11 players. So I don't think you want to tie yourself into that situation. So a triple up looks good if Reguilon was fit, if Bale was playing. But arguably, Kane and Son are where most of the damage is going to come from. They're going to be the players we look to captain. They are the 2 best players for that double game week 32, right? And it's only Spurs that are doubling in that week. And then they blank. So you've got to think about that. If you've got no free hit, that's definitely something to consider. If you have free hit, then game week 33 looks pretty good for it, because now Kane and Son, again, if Son's fit for game week 30, they have Everton, then it's Man United, I believe, then it's a double, then it's a blank, so you free hit them out in the blank in 33, then you get them back for Sheffield United and Leeds, 2 really good fixtures right now. So game week free hit 33 is starting to look a little better. There are still more things to consider. Like I said, will the fixtures be rearranged at the end in order to try and fit in, or to try and get fans into the stadium? And if that happens, what will that mean to FPL game weeks, right? Will fixtures be moved within game weeks? Will the game week dates be moved? I doubt it, but you never know, right? So the free hit could still be worth saving, but right now, this looks like the best week to use it, especially if you're going to go for a triple up on Spurs, and then if you want to keep like some Man City players as well. It's a whole other debate about whether we should keep Man City players, which I might talk about in a minute when I tinker with my team a little bit. But if you don't, and you've only got 2 Spurs, maybe you don't have to worry about 33 so much. I've already seen some talk on Twitter about delaying the wild card, right? Because in game week 31, if you use it then, you're probably still going to want at least 1, maybe 2 City players. You're definitely going to want at least 2 Spurs players, Son and Kane, like I've already talked about. But then they blank in game week 33, so you've kind of got to try and cover both bases. I've seen some talk about delaying it until at least 33, but I don't massively see how that helps, because you're not going to want Kane and Son then in 33 because they're not playing. It's a big chunk of budget to have on the bench, which you could just do in 31 anyway. And then in 34, like I said, they got Sheffield United, and then in 35 they got Leeds. Surely they are 2 players, at least Kane, right? Because a lot of people will captain him. Is a player that you're going to want. Like, ideally, he's going to score a lot of points against Sheffield United and Leeds. So I don't necessarily think using it in 33 really works. You could use it in 34, but then you've only got 34, 35, 36, 37, and 38 to make use of a whole wildcard, 5 game weeks. I mean, it could work, but it feels like a little bit of a waste. So I don't think things have changed so much that the game week 31 wildcard is completely out of the question. Because I think you just plan for game week 33 when you do it. Maybe you just go for 2 Spurs instead of 3, or maybe you go with 3 but have a plan in game week 33 to get rid. The good thing about using the wild card before the blank is you can roll transfers. So if you use a game week 31 wild card, ideally it should be built that you don't need a transfer in game week 32, right? Because that would be a bit crazy. And then you've got 2 transfers for game week 33, and then maybe that's when you switch out some of your City or Spurs players. So I still think, as it stands, without thinking about it a huge amount, because this announcement's only just come out, that the game week 31 wildcard still looks pretty good to me. Which 3 Spurs, of course, and whether to keep or sell Bale is 2 things to consider. I did a whole video earlier with a section about selling Bale. I probably would try and keep him for Newcastle and hope he gets his place back. But I just don't see him playing against Man United necessarily. And then I just don't know if he's going to play both those games in the in the double. So it is going to be a bit of a tricky one. If I was going to go for 3 Spurs, it would be Kane, Son, and a defender now, probably. But if Bale started against Newcastle, he would tempt me a little bit. So they are things to consider. If you've got no chips, then you probably do have to start thinking seriously about which kind of Spurs and City players you want to keep long term. For me, and I don't want to overblow the City rotation too much, because we could get into a situation where we're so worried about it, we sell all their players and they just continue to start and continue to get points. But if I had to ditch between Spurs and City, that City game against Leeds in 31 looks good. But outside of that, I'd probably back Spurs. They've got the double. They've got 2 really good fixtures after the blank. Kane and Son ain't getting rotated anytime soon. As if I had no chips, they'd probably be the team I'd prioritise and just hope for the best with City, that their players continue to get rotated. So it's always good to have a little bit of a tinker, right? And I'll probably do this a bit more on the team selection on Thursday when I've had some proper thought about this. But Man City and Spurs are 2 teams we really have to think heavily about. Now, even with a free hit in 33, potentially for me, because that's the only chip that I've got left, I would still consider maybe dropping some of those players from Man City. So Spurs, as I've just mentioned, right? So Newcastle, then Man United home, not great. Then Everton, Southampton, blank. Then 2 really good fixtures here, Sheffield United and Leeds. And to be honest, Villa, Wolves is fairly difficult. Villa, I think, is okay as well. So Spurs are potentially, like Harry Kane's potentially a player that I could keep now for the rest of the season, barring injury. Son, maybe not quite as much or as important to me as Harry Kane is, but there's no way I'm getting rid of Harry Kane anytime soon. With City, I've got De Bruyne and Gundogan. This game here, this is the one that I really want them for, but it's also the one where I'm the least sure they're definitely going to start. Then Villa's pretty good. The annoying thing is they've got great fixtures after the blanks. They've got Palace, which is decent, Chelsea, which is difficult, and then Newcastle, which is also really good. So Leeds, Villa, Palace, and Newcastle are all decent. But if they start getting into the further stages of the Champions League, like if they get through their quarter-final and they're into the semi-final, there's going to be more rotation. So potentially I could just start reducing after 31 my De Bruyne pick, my Gundogan pick, and go elsewhere. So Gundogan could become Jota, for example. I've thought about doing Rafinha to Jota, but I can also do Gundogan to Jota. De Bruyne could be Fernandes. De Bruyne could be Mane, for example. And if I get rid of my City, okay, yeah, there's some risk if you want to use that word, because a lot of people will still own them. But could Mane or Fernandes potentially outscore De Bruyne if he's going to get rotated a lot? Potentially. It's something I'll have to consider. And I think Gundogan to Jota is a move that I would almost certainly do. If not Gundogan, Rafinha to Jota will be done. And at that point, I've only then got Kane or Son. So the key question then comes, do I get a third? I went for Tierney over Reguilon, right? So do I want to get Reguilon in for him just for that one extra match when I think the longer term Arsenal's fixtures are better? Possibly not. And Reguilon's not guaranteed to start every match either. So that's in the back of my mind. Gareth Bale, De Bruyne to Bale is an option for sure, and it's something I'll consider in Game Week 32. But if Bale doesn't play against Newcastle or Man United, there's no way I'm bringing him in. I don't want to be lumbered with him for the rest of the season. So I'm already now, while I'm thinking out loud, probably just going to go for 2 Spurs. So if I'm only going to go for 2, and if I could get rid of one of Gundogan or De Bruyne, bearing in mind I've got 8 attackers anyway, so someone needs to be benched every week, I could get through Game Week 33 without using the free hit. So while I do think it now looks, with all the info we have, it looks like the best week to use it, potentially I could still get through that week. The only thing that's playing on my mind is I kind of made the same points, or I was along the same thinking for the last blank in Game Week 29, and if I'd used the free hit I would have been like 30 odd points up. With the players that I almost certainly would have brought in. I'm not saying I would have got, I'm not saying I would have got Trossard, but I definitely would have had double or triple Brighton defence. There was just no reason not to on a free hit. And so am I doing the same here? Is having Kane and Son and one of Gundogan or De Bruyne on my bench, is that just too much money that I could use elsewhere? But then what about that Villa-Everton game, right? I don't know when that's going to be put in. I don't have any players apart from Martinez, and I'm probably still going to sell him in Game Week 31. So that's what I'm considering. I just think around Champions League, are Gundogan and De Bruyne going to play all these fixtures? You know, they'll probably play Chelsea. Does that mean they're going to miss one of Newcastle Palace? Well, that's one of their good games, and they got a blank. I think there's a chance I go through 33 without using the free hit and hope there's some more doubles that are more kind of relevant to me. But as it stands right now, that's probably when it's worth using. So that's kind of my strategy. This is my team. I've got no wildcard, so I'm not worried about that. But if I did, I'd still probably be using it in Game Week 31 if I hadn't committed to Game Week 30. And I'd probably just opt for 2 Spurs players. So that's it for this one. Just a short-ish video to talk about what's happened, what to start thinking about. Don't panic. We've still got a good few days until the deadline. There'll be plenty more videos to come from me. And if you've got any specific questions, obviously make sure to ask them below, and I'll try and get through to as many as possible, right? Or get back to as many as possible. But I will have the game week preview tomorrow. So follow me on Twitter. I'll have a tweet that goes out about that, getting your questions and topics in. And I'm sure there'll be a lot around Game Week 32, maybe some stuff that I've missed. Please do hit like and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Plenty more chaos to come for the rest of the season. You need to be subscribed to this channel. Help me get to 150k. And lastly, if you've not already signed up to Patreon at patreon.com/letstalkfpl, link in the description below. Loads of perks and benefits over there if you haven't already checked them out. And a big shout out to Anthony G, who has signed up since the last video as well. So thank you very much for that. Thanks for everyone's support. Keep hitting that like button, keep hitting that subscribe button, and I'll be back tomorrow, as long as there's no more FPL announcements, with a game week preview. I'll see you then.